What's a bullshit job?
Okay, bullshit jobs. You know,
Do I have a bullshit job here?
No, this is the opposite of a bullshit job. I mean, people watch the show. It's not a bullshit job, right?
Okay.
Bullshit job. This is fun. One of the things that I told myself when the debt book was successful was I was going to take advantage of this to widen my opportunities of expression rather than narrow them. What I mean by that is, I was saying this earlier before the interview, you know, there's this weird thing where if you say something that people decide is interesting and creative and unusual and actually people pay attention to it, say here's a person able to say creative and new things, the world will somehow conspire to ensure that you never do it again. So they will try to make you say the same damn thing over and over and over again. Because you don't get that much money for the book, but you do get money for talks or articles where you just say the same thing in a slightly different format over and over again until you just become this robot that's repeating things. And I thought, I'm not going to do that. One reason I can't afford a house. But nonetheless, I think it's worth it.
So they want you to they wanted you to keep talking about debt
the same thing.
Right, same thing.
And I could have made a lot of money because, you know, rich people are interested in money. They like that. They'll probably, you know, if I got myself a personal assistant and arranged deals, I could probably give talks all over the place. But I decided I wasn't going to do that. Instead, I'm going to see if I can't do the opposite. Turn this into an opportunity to take, you know, all those crazy rants and obsessions and interesting things I've been thinking about that no one would ever print, and actually figure out a way to get it out there. And that's why I came up with the thing about the flying cars and technology, or my analysis of neckties, or, you know, all sorts of things like that. But this one, there were some people who formed this new radical newspaper called Strike Mag. And they said, got anything kind of oddball that you got lying around, maybe that nobody else will print? This is your big opportunity. We'll print anything. So I said, okay, yeah. I had noticed over the years that you keep meeting people who are embarrassed by what they do. You meet them at a party, and especially if you're someone like me, I'm an anthropologist, and most people think that's kind of interesting. So they'll say, oh, you're an anthropologist, what is that? Do you go to like foreign countries, you live in villages, like what's that like? And how do you, you know, how do you... So they'll start asking all these questions, and then you say, well, what do you do? And they'll, you don't really want to know. And so, right. You know, and you get them a little drunk, you press them, and say, to tell you the truth, I mean, I got this job, I'm the, you know, senior East Coast like vision manager for this company, and I don't really do anything, you know. I just like file reports and nobody really reads them, and we create these committees and pass things back and forth, and it's just like bullshit. And so I started asking people, you know, like how often, you know, what about do you actually do anything at your job? You know, how many hours a day do you really work? And a lot of people say, well, you know, to be honest, I think what I do, you could probably do it in 3 hours, but a week, you know. But I stretch it out, and they always say, like, don't tell my boss, okay? But, you know, a computer could do this whole thing. So you get all these people, and I thought about it, and I thought, well, this is really interesting, because this is exactly what capitalism isn't supposed to do. You know, back in the Soviet Union, they did stuff like that. They made up all these jobs because they had a full employment program. Everybody had to have a job, whether or not you actually needed them to be doing anything. So they would, you know, set up these things where to buy a piece of beef in the store, you'd have to like go to one person to get the beef, and then you got a ticket, and then you have to take the ticket on another line. They just make up employment. But we're doing something like that, except it's all being done by the private sector. Most of these people weren't working for the government. They were, you know, working for private competitive firms. So how on earth do you have a situation where private firms are making up jobs where they pay people not to do anything? Now that's exactly the last thing you'd think that a competitive firm would do.
The opposite of capitalism.
Yeah, except they're capitalist firms. So what's going on? And I thought about this, and I thought, well, you know, in fact, these jobs constitute a pretty big sector of our economy. I didn't know how much at the time. I was guessing 20-25%. It turns out it's more. But, you know, think about it. Like, there's all these industries that are basically, if they disappeared, it wouldn't make any difference. Telemarketing, you know, if all telemarketers vanished, most people would not complain. I mean, they'd be pretty happy, actually. Corporate lawyers, if you talk to corporate lawyers, I mean, there's one or two big shots who think what they do is important, but the vast majority say, well, yeah, I mean, it's completely unnecessary. If I didn't have this job, like, the world would not change in any way. And some of these things are jobs where it's not necessary. You if nobody did it, nobody would need to do it. You only, one guy needs a corporate lawyer, but somebody else has a corporate lawyer. It's like armies. Nobody needs an army. No country needs an army unless other countries have armies. Corporate lawyers are a little bit like armies, or telemarketers or like that. But there are other things that aren't even like that. Like all of these middle management guys who just organize meetings or fill out forms or supervise the way other people are filling out forms, or create meaningless paperwork and reports. And then I suddenly thought, well, this is why people are not working 15-hour days. Because back in the 30s, John Maynard Keynes wrote an essay called, I can't remember, it was like the Economic Prospects for the Next Century, something like that, where he basically said in 100 years, we shouldn't be working more than 15 hours a day. Technology will have improved to the point where we can have a society mainly based on leisure. Work will be a relatively unimportant part of our lives. And I thought, well, the interesting thing is if you look at what jobs existed in the 1930s, they could have done that if we'd kept up the same type of job profile. Because back then there were a lot of people working in industry, there were a lot of people working in agriculture, a lot of domestic servants. All that's gone. A lot of the domestic servants have now been replaced by service jobs in, Starbucks or whatever. But even, we have this idea that, oh yeah, well, industry, there isn't as many people employed, even if you count the ones in China and other places where the factories have gone. But actually, it's not so much service. I mean, the people think it's gone to the service sector. What it's gone to is the administrative, clerical, and supervisory sector. So if you count service and that together, it's gone from, I think, a quarter of the economy, or a quarter of all jobs, to 75% now. So you have all these people administering other people.
So what is going on here? And why is this happening?
Exactly, and they're not really doing anything. They're just pretending. And then think about it. Think about all the people, you have some company where all they do is they take German forms and translate them into French forms, and it's a completely meaningless job. But then there's all the people who are cleaning their bathrooms and doing the reception and the security for that building, and those jobs are unnecessary too. And how does this happen? Huge swaths of our economy is completely unnecessary. And I tried to think about it, and I thought, well, it's not the consumerism. That's the usual, because most of these jobs have nothing to do with giving us more sushi and more iPhones and things like that. It seems to be this idea that work is a value in itself. Back in the 19th century, people really got the idea of the labor theory of value. Social movements really managed to get that out there and became common sense. Value comes from labor. We collectively make our world. We manufacture things, and
Protestant work ethic.
Yeah, there's a Protestant work ethic. It kind of jibed with that, and but if you listen to speeches that politicians made in the 1860s, 1870s, they all sound like Marxists. Abraham Lincoln, is like labor. All capital comes from labor. They had that idea, and it was really. But the idea of labor they had was industrial labor. I think this is part of the problem. The paradigm for all work was going and hammering something and, casting steel, manufacturing automobiles, whatever. Hard physical work that makes something. But so one of the problems they had is they kind of focused on production as if it were the paradigm of all labor, even though most people even then were not factory workers, even working class people. More of them were, cabbies and nurses and gardeners, caretakers. I always say, you produce a cup once, but you wash it 1,000 times. Most labor is actually maintaining things.
To watch the rest of this fascinating interview, click on the link below and go to londonrealacademy.com. There you can sign in with your social media, log in and watch the rest of the episode for free, along with all of our episodes on London Real, my webinars, and all of our premium content, all located over at londonrealacademy.com. So click on the link below. You'll be directed there and you can watch the rest of this fascinating interview, and I'll see you there.